Well, back again. And this time we're going to conclude this three-part installment on Unit 8, Assignment 7 with a fairly brief discussion of the frontier thesis of the historian Frederick Jackson Turner, what Turner meant by it, why he was moved to devise it, and what it seemed to portend for the country down the road. It all started really in 1890 with the 1890 census. Once the 1890 census was analyzed, the raw data was analyzed and was published, something disturbing to many Americans became readily apparent. And that was that there really was no frontier anymore in the United States. And it showed, the 1890 census showed, what became known as the closing of the frontier. In other words, there was no longer a clear dividing line between settled areas to the east, we got up to the frontier line, the edge of settlement, and on the other hand, on the other side of the line to the west, you would have unsettled areas. For a long time, there had been that sort of dividing line that gradually, moved further and further west with a little hop, skip, and a jump to the coast of Oregon and California. But by 1890, the clear dividing line wasn't there anymore. There still were pockets and patches of unsettled areas, but no clear dividing line between settled and unsettled areas. No more clear frontier. For the first time ever in American history, in 1890, there's no frontier left. I can't stress the importance of this enough. This is a concept and a thesis, Turner's thesis, you really, really have to get down to get into the mindset of late 19th century and early 20th century Americans. Well, as time goes by, not very long, but the published results of the census are examined by scholars around the country, and one of the scholars was to make use of this information was a historian at the University of Wisconsin by the name of Frederick Jackson Turner. And he was intrigued and troubled, I think, by the fact that there was no more frontier. There no longer was a frontier line in America. And he got to work thinking about, historically, what had always having a frontier meant to the United States. How did always, up to 1890, having a frontier, how did that affect the development of America and the so-called American character? And to Turner, it had a lot to do with it. And in 1893, he published his very, very famous essay titled The Significance of the Frontier in American History. And his argument contained in this essay became known as the Turner thesis or the Turner frontier thesis. Okay, his thesis is actually, his argument's actually fairly simple, but that doesn't diminish its importance. So let's get to it. Turner argued that for 300 years after the original English settlement of what would become the United States, a frontier experience and the existence always of a frontier had played a unique role in shaping the unique character of Americans and of American society. Okay? Turner argued that the existence of a frontier throughout American history had led to the development of a number of American characteristics. Number one, it really promoted a habit of independence and individualism on the part of Americans. If you're out on the edge of living on the edge of a howling wilderness, or maybe in the midst of what still is howling wilderness, you're going to be probably pretty isolated from other people. So if you sit around waiting for other people to help you solve your problems or overcome your difficulties, you're not going to be around very long. So you learn to become very much self-motivated and develop a heck of a lot of initiative and the ability to improvise and devise solutions on the run to problems that can pop up out of nowhere. I mean, some of them you can anticipate, but others you can't. And that, as a result, Americans came to rely in many cases on themselves, and did not brook any interference from others, and they developed a very individualistic mindset, a very independent mindset that comes out of it. Second, Turner believed that the existence of a frontier and of land being available, unsettled land being available to the West, really did a lot to diminish socioeconomic disparities and differences, and to mute conflicts between various social classes in America. Because he saw it, and what I like to call it, and a lot of people use this metaphor, but it was kind of a safety valve for American society. If you're in the East and you have a tiny farm that isn't really productive anymore, you really can't make a go of it, or you're working in a mill or a mine or a factory and you're tired of the conditions and you're tired of getting treated like crap, you had an alternative. It wasn't an easy alternative, it wasn't a bed of roses, but you had an option. Your option was you could move west, start over, get your own land, and with the Homestead Act of 1862 it was pretty much free. Get your own land, establish a homestead and a farm, and be your own boss. So you didn't feel trapped, necessarily. It didn't require a lot of startup money. It just required energy, initiative, guts, maybe a little desperation, to say, the heck with this. I'm tired of working 14 hours a day in a sweatshop. I'm heading west. Pull up stakes and head west and be my own boss. And as a result, resentments, tensions had a release. They didn't build up. The pressure, the socioeconomic pressure didn't build and build and build until, boom, it blew a gasket, and we had some kind of social revolution along the lines of what Marx had predicted was going to be the fate for the capitalist West. Well, we had that safety valve there. It held the promise of a fresh start. You could be your own boss. But now, as of 1890, there isn't a frontier anymore. There's still land available out west, but the amount of land available is dwindling fast, and there isn't a lot of good land left. I mean, obviously the good land got taken up first. So there was this real sense of opportunities being diminished, and that this safety valve, this potential method for relieving socioeconomic pressure, wasn't there anymore. Okay? And that really worried a lot of Americans. It's something the country and America and Americans had never faced before. They've always had this frontier. Now it's not really there anymore, clearly. What did that mean for the future? Well, many Americans, including Turner, said it could mean, over time, some drastic changes in American society. And the question that nobody really wanted to ask, but a lot of people were thinking about, was, did that mean that the United States was going to go down a more European path of development now, where, you have, really, really stark class distinctions, and you have socioeconomic tension and pressure build up until finally the lid blows off the place and you have this huge revolution. And remember, the 19th century, especially the middle part of the century, there was one revolution after another in all parts of Europe, pretty much. So Americans thinking, oh, is that our fate down the road? Now, one of the things that made us really unique and special isn't really there anymore. And does that mean that we're going to change as a people? His argument's controversial, and a lot of the assertions that he made on a specific, on a level of greater specificity, have been questioned and called, thrown into doubt. But essentially, historians across the board realized that the 1890s, by the 1890s, the largest movement pattern of Americans was no longer west. Now, it was from rural areas to urban areas, wherever those urban areas happen to be. So that's something very, very different for the United States. Okay, and with the closing of the frontier, you're going to be able to see the hold that the rural lifestyle and the agrarian lifestyle and the huge role that agriculture played in the economy begin to gradually diminish. And urban areas and industrial areas on the upswing. So there you have it. That's Turner's Frontier Thesis in brief explanation. You need to know it. You need to be able to explain it. So here you go. And there you are. See you later.